Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command World War II, World at War with our allied playthrough. In the last episode, a lot of things happened, we ended turn, we are invading Japan with China in 1942. The Germans are being pushed back, Mongolia just joined the war, Brazil joined the war, all kinds of things are happening. I still think my diplomacy game has been very weak this whole playthrough, but we've managed to deal with some enemies that had pushed through to behind our lines, and looks like this did not fill in as I hoped that it would, but we can do that ourselves and fix the supply there. We had a little bit of a battle, sinking a German battle cruiser over here in the Norwegian Sea and harassing a sub. We've made plans for delayed Operation Torch, as I've realized America and most things are not really going to be needed if Japan falls, and we just got improved infantry weapons for the Chinese, as well as the Russians. So our offensives may slow down. However, even if they do slow down, that's just setting them up for a further resurgence very, very shortly, because if I get infantry weapons level 2 and I have entirely armies, and as we see, no armies are coming out to meet me, we are going to completely overwhelm the Japanese. So let's start with that. Let's take the 6th Army here and use it to attack the Yamato battleship, which reinforced in port. We did I can't even see the number there. We didn't do as much damage as I was hoping we would, unfortunately. Let's swap you out to Nagasaki and then attack with the 54th Army, dealing a fair bit of damage. Alright. And then you don't have enough supply to fucking do anything, unfortunately. Supply in this region is very low, and the road here is not the greatest. I can't upgrade you as a result, so what I think I'll do instead is just kind of move you northeast and maneuver you up north. Hey, that actually secured Hiroshima for us, which by default, this port would not have sustained us. We are very lucky Nagasaki was open to be able to land additional armies here. And we do have up here a situation. Now, I know they had paratroopers over here, so I'm a little concerned about that, because they might be able to try to get paratroopers behind the 23rd Army here, whose supplies are not the greatest as we are still landing and projecting our power. I would love to be able to properly set up the infantry weapons on these other units. However, if we're going to make this go as fast and as efficiently as possible, they need as little time to react as possible. So we are going to get set up the Sun HQ in a long-range transport. We are going to set up the 4th Army in a regular amphibious transport. Very convenient place to pop out. And the Dare to Die Special Forces will also set up in an amphibious transport. And we are ideally going to maneuver these things either to Hakodate and Sapporo or Niigata. Doing this is actually going to take a couple turns to set up. All the while, these armies will be losing supply in transit. But that's exactly why I felt I needed to get them moving now. We are still a ways away from more amphibious warfare to actually properly set this up. I'll probably set them the long way around. Also, probably the safer way around, which I'm realizing would probably have been better if I set up at Seishin instead of where I did set up, but there's no rushing it. Well, in this case, I guess I could just go for Niigata. But actually holding Niigata would be a little difficult. It would be a little difficult. There is a chance that there just isn't enough Japanese stuff over there now that they've sent everything down south. I know it was one of these forces stationed at Niigata, and if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we in 2 turns could be set up to land at Niigata instead of the 3 or more that it would take to set up for Sapporo. I probably will set up for Sapporo, just not right now. The Sun HQ is going to have no problem getting over there. It's these other units in the regular amphibs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so we can do this. We just have to get them kind of moving in that direction. So I will, it's a little risky, but we'll get them moving. The Sun HQ is just going to stay where it is because it can move 16. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Bam. Done. It doesn't need to move up really at all. It can move up just before we land a little bit, but it doesn't need to move forward that much. So we'll go for Niigata this time. And then we'll send reinforcements if we need to, and we'll prepare our next one with another HQ and ideally 2 more armies instead of an army and a special forces going for Sapporo, leaving out of Seishin. We already have 2 armies in the region, multiple armies in the region, in fact. So it shouldn't be that hard. That was so expensive to set up that we're already down to 190 MPPs. We just had like 400. So that's pretty brutal. Even though our forces up front are not upgraded, we can't upgrade them because we're, well, on a front. We will go ahead and actually attack the Japanese corps since they're not entrenched. Dealing 3 damage, taking none, that was way better than it predicted it would turn out. So very good result. Just trying to deal some damage and hold the line while the rest of our armies can move through the Japanese terrain and get caught up in what should hopefully be a very good conquest of Japan, since the AI is not really going to be able to react as well as a player would react. I know exactly what army I'll use for the next one. The 41st Army is right here, already ready to be set up, so I'll just move it up there, get whatever upgrades I can for it in time. We'll upgrade the 42nd Army to have what upgrades it can have, and we will need another HQ. Now this could be the Zoo HQ, this could also be the Zoo HQ. Wonderful. Zoo and Zoo. Interesting. Well, we want to get those set up ideally, and the Zoo HQ, don't get that confused with the Zoo HQ, is going to head down to Busan because it'll be the one using the long-range transports. Doesn't need to be placed as much up northeast, and there's not enough room by the docks here to even do that. So that's going down to Busan from up where it is, in a place that will now be probably very nerfed in terms of the supply it has available. The first heavy artillery can move to get into position as well. If we get that up to the coast, we could send that by normal transport to Hiroshima, or well, Nagasaki, which if we can get an arty in Japan, that could certainly help with any deficiencies we have in pushing through entrenchments in this southern front where a lot of the fighting is going to be happening. I will go ahead and operate that towards Busan, planning to get that getting sent out sooner rather than later. We do have enough MPPs to get one 175 MPP research in, and thinking about what would be most helpful to us in the time being now that infantry weapons is done, I'm going to say probably command and control to make our HQs more effective and thus our units more effective. Oh, but hang on a second. I don't actually have enough MPPs to even do that. Well, okay, I've spent that much already as is, I see. So we'll just probably continue spending or save and then get the research when we can. Because right now, what else could I really afford? Naval and aerial warfare? That's not a whole lot. China isn't really going to be wanting for things in the long run, so it definitely doesn't need to prioritize upgrades of anything like that. So I'll go ahead and just deal with my units for right now. We'll get the 1st Army here properly set up with infantry weapons level 2 and anti-air. 68th Army also want to get that set up. We have elite reinforcements for the 2nd Heavy Artillery. I'll go ahead and get that. That could be pretty helpful. Down to 31 MPP. Still some other things we could do. Infantry weapons level 2 for the 12th Army here, which will probably get shipped out at some point. That could definitely be handy. And we're running low on number of armies. There's just like these 2 and that one. If I send that one anywhere, I would like to send it to Niigata. However, that might take time to free up. The Niigatan force is going to have some problems because it's not going to be able to get easy reinforcements, and it's going to be dead center in Japan. However, if it is successful, maybe I could just send the 2nd amphibious wave over there as well. And then we... If it does work out, we'd be right next to Tokyo just like that. It's hard to amphibiously go for Tokyo just because of the border here, but a lot of things could happen here. Not much is certain. Not too much need to move anything else around. I guess if you are not on a city, you probably should be. Especially one that's going to have decent supply. There's no need to keep dudes all the way up north here. This is just not going to be the best situation. As well, this corps doesn't need to be up here. We'll just start running this stuff south because it doesn't have any purpose being up where it is right now. Well, okay, we have the 5th Army. This is another army. We'll send that down towards where there's further supply. So we will have enough armies to do another front should we want to. It would certainly help deal with the Japanese, but the main thing we need to do is snipe their capital. Because just even landing here and taking this stuff, these things are not national morale objectives. Ironically, all their national morale objectives, they're in the Pacific and they're in China. They've already lost almost all of them. We've done enough to make them surrender at the fall of Tokyo. We just need to go take Tokyo. Looking over at the USSR now, we have 2 diplomatic ships we can allocate instead of 1. I think I might just put all of these into Sweden for right now. We have a 20% chance to move Finland at the moment. Maybe I put one more into Finland to try to make that happen faster. Could be handy. I've definitely learned that's probably the smarter thing to do. We'll put one into Sweden. And I wasn't planning on putting more into Finland, but it could guarantee that they hopefully join sooner rather than later. So we'll spend the other one on Finland for the time being. The only one that actually has a chit other than them is going to be India, although India's diplomatic contacts are very limited, focusing entirely on like communist China, Iraq, and some other things that we just generally don't care about. I'll figure India out later, but Soviets, I wanted to get their chits out of the way as soon as possible. Looking at the Soviet front, there's definitely going to be a lot of upgrades to do for units that can get upgrades, but there's also a certain amount of pushing that needs to be handled here as well as reinforcing. So we have a lot of units that need reinforcements, and I'm going to prioritize that, as we're going to need them up to strength, as well as upgraded, before we do too much else. Anyone in the rear that's missing any amount is someone I'm going to prioritize repairing. I'm also going to get the 5th tanks out of here, which means we're going to want to send somebody else in. The armor, the heavy tanks and stuff like that, they don't have any upgrades that they need to get. They just need reinforcements at most. It's the infantry that have the burden of needing to reinforce and do all that jazz here. The 3rd Army of the Germans, we're focusing down this corps we have here. It's not the greatest situation. The supply here is not the greatest. So it's... I don't know if I want to leave that corps there. It's just going to suffer further attack. Could let them turn on the 43rd Army for the time being, which is not going to be able to upgrade because it's on a front, at least not without swapping, or just, you know, retreating altogether. But if it retreats right now, it certainly will not be able to upgrade. We want to prioritize things that can get upgrades more than doing any maneuvers for this turn, because the upgraded infantry that could progress and proceed the next turn would be absolutely game-changing. Still just going to focus reinforcing anything that needs reinforcements on the rear. There is this X Corps here, this 10th Corps, that definitely needs an upgrade of some sort, needs some kind of recovery for it. I might just move this cavalry forward and then move the infantry back. I'm unsure because the infantry cannot get far enough back without moving something, and this is the only way to actually get it out of there fully. If I keep it here and reinforce it, it'll probably die. But I do want to upgrade the Mongolian Cavalry Corps. I guess the cavalry's not as important, so we'll move ahead the Mongolian Cavalry Corps, and we will move back the 10th Corps. If the Panzers chase it up here to try to kill it, you know what? That's only good, because that means I can actually do something about them. We'll upgrade the paratroopers with better infantry weapons for the time being. A lot of this stuff on the front is not going to have the best opportunity to upgrade, but this mechanized does. This mechanized does. They also need to repair, but mechanized at 9 is offensive enough. I'll go for the upgrades first. This one is only bordering, so we're just going to go ahead and reinforce. Oh, there's so many units that are going to need upgrades. We're not going to be able to afford all of it right now. But we don't have to. The Germans will be repairing, so their offensive shouldn't be too crazy. I'll go ahead, I'll just move this corps back for now into its entrenchments, leaving the engineers out here and the 43rd Army to project a zone of control to hopefully keep that situation under control. Supply out here is not the greatest, so we cannot really reinforce or anything over there. 320 MPPs remaining. What else needs immediate attention? Any planes anywhere? No, the planes are all actually pretty good. Amazingly. We will upgrade this mechanized. Upgrading the mechanized is of a lot of importance. Sadly, still no armored warfare. However, getting mechanized upgraded will make them more powerful one way or another. Again, a lot of them actually don't really have an ability to upgrade, but whatever. These enemies at the 4th Army here are proving exceptionally brutal to our forces. So I don't necessarily want to push shock heavy tanks up just to be attacked by them. But you know what? Fuck it. We'll send the shock heavy tanks forward. And then we'll take the light tanks and move them around to cut off the 4th Army at Memel. Because so long as we can hold this for one turn and this army gets cut off, its days of doing a lot of dangerous shit to us will be over. Because it will have very little supply Like, it's going to have its supply, and we can slowly erode it and then kill it over time. Our chances against the Italian tanks here they're okay. We might use some of the units on the front to attack, but without fully cutting them off, they can still make a comeback, which makes me wonder how I should go about this. We'll upgrade this army. This army is important. We'll upgrade this army. This army's in an important location. All the ones on the border we can pretty much ignore. Border, 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 border. A lot of border troops here. We got the 21st Army that can get an upgrade. We have the 1st Guards Army that can get an upgrade. Burning through the MPPs. We have the 1st Red Banner Army that can get an upgrade. And the rest of this stuff is on a border and thus cannot get any upgrades. Alright, this is working out. We have the Vladivostok Corps that can get an upgrade. They're near the front. We have the 13th Army that can get an upgrade. We have the 16th Army that can get an upgrade. Let's see here. This corps can get an upgrade. Burning through almost all of it at this rate. Almost all of it. This is going to result in me leaving the anti-tank in the rear for the time being, but that's fine. Not too concerned about that. I think I will move this corps forward rather than upgrade it, just to fully encircle the Italian tanks here so that they can't get away. Ideally, right? And that their supply starts to run out as well. That's what I'd like to see happen. 90 MPPs remaining. Let's upgrade this corps with infantry weapons 2. Let's upgrade this one with infantry weapons 2. This one, I'm just going to retreat for now. It doesn't need to be up there pressed against the panzers. It'll do better just getting closer to supply. And then I think that's all the infantry upgrades for actual units fighting on the front line that we can even manage right now with our current situation. Very few offenses will be happening. We'll reinforce the Sevastopol Corps in the meantime. The idea is to have the upgraded ones start pushing, and then when the non-upgraded ones get a chance, they'll be able to upgrade as well. That's kind of my idea I'm working with. This corps is on the front. We're going to go ahead and attack the Italian tanks, dealing 3 damage, taking 1. We'll attack with this rifle corps, dealing 3 damage, taking none. Alright. We'll attack with the armored train, dealing 2 damage, taking none. And now this corps from the south, dealing 1 damage, taking 1. It's so close to dying. But I would have to swap in like this army, and then this corps will definitely get beat up. This Italian tank will die one way or another. It doesn't have to die right now. Its death right now is not necessarily worth the losses I would take by breaking entrenchment on these 2 armies bordering the group at Memel. If the group at Memel even goes for them, they'll certainly go for the core. I feel like if I move the core there, it will just be so easy to hit. But they might just go for the light tanks as well. I'm not sure. Maybe giving them a better target here might be good, because then if I can keep them surrounded, that's actually better for me in the long run. Alright, fair. Let's go ahead and swap in the 18th Army and finish off the Italian tanks. And just like that, Kaunas, or however the fuck you say this, is secured. We will move this rifle corps up to the new front. And no one else really capable of moving other than the armored train right now. So I guess I'll just move the armored train forward to take position up at this secondary supply location. Which I have looked up the meaning of secondary, primary, and all this other crap. There's also some shit that doesn't show unless you hover over something, like major port, which is only visible at the bottom right. And there's also ports, which are like minor as opposed to major. Determines the amount of supply that will be there as a maximum. Just for the record, not as a total, but as a maximum. I'm going to move the first red fighters forward to make sure that this light tank stays as protected as possible from enemy air. Whereas the western fighters just kind of hold their position in this region. No upgrades I can really get for any of them. That's fine. There's no offensives available to me that are worth pushing. We rather just want to sit defensive until the majority of our forces can get upgraded and reinforced and do whatever it is they need to do to continue to push the offensive, although we are getting near winter, so that's going to slow us down. However, the power we're gaining from upgrading is certainly worth any downsides. and certainly worth ignoring research for this turn. Now, we did get the Mongolians, who do start out with a corps, actually, that we can use. We'll just start running that up north towards where the railway is. The Mongolians can only get one other thing, and that is a cavalry corps. They can have one corps, one cavalry corps. Not the best, but at least getting the free corps right now is good. Plus, I guess any income. Yeah, at least the capital of Mongolia has some income. That could help the Soviets in future turns. I don't think the Soviets will be running into a manpower problem in the long run here, so I'm not too worried. We can go on an offensive near Memel, and it'd be pretty much trading blow for blow if we wanted to weaken them now. But I think I will just sit in my locations and let them strike out for this turn, and then hit them next turn once their supplies are lower. If they reinforce, you know, so be it. That won't be much of an issue. We do have 53 MPPs remaining, so we can potentially, actually, yeah, get some of the anti-tanks moving forward. Unfortunately, none of them can get far enough to reach the presence of German tanks, except this one. Oh, this is perfect. We'll send it right down here, right next to these German panzers. Perfect location, in fact. We still have enough to operate another one. Probably only one more. There's not a lot I could do with it. Oh, you know what? I could have moved it up here in place of the cavalry corps that ran forward. That would have probably been pretty good. If I can only move one for now, I'll probably move it somewhere to the north here where we can hopefully have an anti-tank to counter any enemy tanks we might see. 17 MPPs, and so that's going to be it for the USSR. Now I want to deal with some stuff over here in the Pacific that I forgot about last turn. Namely, taking the Vendetta Destroyer and getting it up into a port where it can get some upgrades. Which, by the way, also I moved the HQ, and the HQ can border transport. I don't know why it couldn't before, but it definitely can do it. Do you have your upgrades? You do. So you're going to want to go join the fleet proper over here. I also forgot to put the DEI sub, oh god, into port. We have the Hotspur Destroyer, which is upgraded, so we're going to send that over there. Trying to clear out some ports. You can head over towards Bombay. We'll have this light cruiser upgrading with what it can get. I'm trying to get the fleet up here ready, because the fleet up here, whether it engages Japan or not, could still be pretty handy for something. And there's no more upgrades for the carrier. Most of these ships are good to go. We can reinforce the Truant sub, so we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to be a little delayed on the DEI sub, unfortunately, just because of error. India, we have 152 MPPs. We still want to spend this primarily on our units at the moment. So I'm going to upgrade the heavy artillery here with mobility. Get everything as upgraded as possible right now. This Gurkha Special Forces does not need any mobility or anything right now. We have one army, the BAI army, which is Indian. We have Gurkha Special Forces as a corps, paratrooper Special Forces. Okay, so we would want the Gurkha Special Forces, the army, probably another Special Forces, and then the HQ in the initial wave. So we're going to go ahead and then just, actually, oh yeah, no, we could still do it. Swap them out, and then... Oh, we can only do an amphibious transport here, unfortunately, but we can upgrade the BAI army from where it is, so we're going to go ahead and get that. The works. The artillery would be nice as well. And now I'm just, like, fucking everything up over here. Best of my ability. We'll get this shit moving soon. It's not really going to get moving ASAP. We want to focus the mobility on these special forces. We have this corps already set up. We have the paratroopers set up. We have a fighter group that's arrived, so the Indians will be able to provide their own fighter coverage when they do get over to Spain, which is what I plan on using them for now. Don't know if they'll need any assistance getting over there. Probably not. So long as we take the long way around, they should be pretty good. Supply in Papua New Guinea has improved a little bit in some places. It's still not the greatest, 4 and 2. We'll go ahead and attack with the Kanga Special Forces, dealing 2 damage, taking 1 damage. We're winning this fight in the long run, but... it's definitely not the most efficient thing that we've done. These forces need some time to, like, recover. These corps, they still can't do anything, apparently, but we will go ahead and attack nonetheless. Nobody's very happy fighting here at all, not them nor us. So long as we keep this up, as of right now, we will win. We probably do need to reinforce this sooner or later. We need to move back a little bit to actually make that happen. So I think I will do that. I will move this Special Forces back to get some reinforcements. Move the second corps here, and they can kind of do like a swapping act, so that they're just in better supply the entire time, and maintaining entrenchments if there are ever any to be had over here. Which reminds me, we do have the HQ from Canada to deploy at Halifax, which we will, and the Albacore sub to deploy from America. In this game, subs cannot engage subs, so we're going to want to deploy this, I guess, in the West for the time being. I mean, what am I even going to use a sub for at this point? I don't know. The only use I have for it right now is probably in the West. We'll send that down to San Diego. And we do have, unfortunately, raiding right here that we cannot do a lot about right now. We'll have to start rushing a lot of British units over there to do anything about that. Hopefully they stay on the Canadian line and not going for the American line, because that could be a little painful. We don't need to keep everything up here. I think the mission we set out to do is pretty much complete. We haven't found the intended target that we were looking for, so let's just start retracting everything from out of here as best we can. Yeah, we want to get the carriers back into ports where they can acquire some upgrades. This battlecruiser has its upgrades. Let's move that out. And any reinforcements that they might need. You could just go right to the furthest one. You can go all the way down to Bristol. You, the Courageous Carrier, can go down to Liverpool. Did I even need a naval cruise for that? I don't know. The Ark Royal Carrier can go down to Belfast. And I think that's all these carriers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay, cool. They can get whatever upgrades they can get. I know this one got it. The upgrades are a little confusing the way they line them out for this. But that pretty much covers this. And now we'll get the Canadian destroyers naval cruising back down their own line to where they can get back into their permanent positions. All 3 of them, but they're a little far away, so we might want to send them help to really get that submarine out of a location where it can do massive harm. So we'll send the Jersey destroyer as well, which probably can't make it the entire way, but it can make it down here to St. John's Port at the very least. And what other destroyers might we have? The Bulldog destroyer, I guess we can send down there as well for the time being, just temporarily. I don't want to pull anything off the other line if I don't have to. So we'll just send this massive destroyer fleet heading down there to respond to the threat presented by our enemies. The Prince of Wales battleship will go back into the safety of the Irish Sea, as well as the Duke of York battleship. And now that this is all getting here, we can take the Hood battle cruiser and move that further in. We have the Triumphant light cruiser, which is for now just going to go help make a screen up here. And the Kent heavy cruiser, which can, I guess, just do the same for the time being. Nothing immediate or urgent for me to do there. We can reinforce the Salmon sub with whatever it needs. The Southampton light cruiser is pretty much good to be deployed wherever the fuck I want to deploy it. As well as the Belfast light cruiser at Southampton. Right now, I'll just move the Belfast over to Plymouth and the Southampton down to Southampton proper. And I'll take the Formidable and move that around to where the other carriers are going to be, because they don't need to do anything particularly important right now. The main thing is just to get the carriers upgraded, and then we'll send this carrier force out to assist with a North African landing, as well as the Indian landing in Spain. They could probably handle all of that together as one unified force. Just for funsies, we can go ahead and use the tactical bombers on Suva, doing whatever damage we can to the enemies sitting there. We'll take some damage as well, but that's fine. Doing whatever damage we can, because we might as well hurt the Japanese however we can while the Chinese assault, because that will weaken them and make them more susceptible to our future movements. I'll take the Nautilus sub and I'll move it into a stealthy position over by the East China Sea to try to kind of protect from a carrier advance that might move towards my transports. I think that's something to do with it. We have the S-42 sub here, who could certainly make some distance as well. We'll force that out to about Marcus Island for now. We have no other ships lining this way. We do have some reinforcements and upgrades to do at Pearl Harbor. Most of them actually already being done. In that case, we'll take these ships and I guess just naval cruise them out, huh? Yeah. Naval cruise them out to where the other guys are, including the destroyers, as we make room in Pearl for anyone else that might need anything, such as the Somers destroyer and the New York battleship. That's all the naval and air stuff for the Pacific and the Atlantic. There's land stuff to do, and then the main front in Europe with the UK to look at. But that's going to be it for this episode. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.